Alright guys, I finally got 14.1.4 on my 2024 Model 3 Performance with AI4 and a no front bumper camera, and I've been testing it quietly all week. I wanted to log some hours and put it through its paces in my town before forming an opinion, and boy, has an opinion been formed. But I will say out of the gate, this is by far the most Jekyll and Hyde release from Tesla I have ever experienced. A few minutes and I'm thinking to myself, this is so rock solid and it's been incredible going point to point, and most of my drives so far have been in heavy rain. And then the next few minutes I'm legitimately anxious and wondering how this version is beyond the early access group. And don't worry, I have receipts, that's why I'm putting this video together. And I wanted to do this mostly dedicated video for FSD because this is easily the most important thing at Tesla right now, right after making sure Elon stays at Tesla for another 10 years. And with version 14, I was very eager to test if certain issues I had with 13 were fixed. And I'm not going to rant about things you've already heard about many times from other channels. I just want to walk through specific situations and then wrap it up by sharing my concerns and postulating about where we go from here. So on the first drive, within the first 3 minutes, watch FSD avoid this roadkill. It was actually pretty significant, and you'll hear the original audio.
Oh my God.
So clearly Ashley was startled and or impressed, but here is the roadkill. FSD went from about 55 down to about 35 and went right around it, which in this case I think was the right move given how big it actually was. Now for a parking situation at Wegmans, you can see this is super easy. Plenty of wide open spaces on the right. It should just pull up, pull off on the right, take one of these open spots, and we're done. But for whatever reason, it decides to park right in between these two cars on the left. Now, it did it fine, but obviously this is not ideal. But remember, it's precisely situations like this where Elon said when Tesla adds reasoning to the model, things like this will get a lot better. So we're just going to have to wait another few weeks. Here we are in standard mode, and that same roadkill is now on the other side of the road. But watch how FSD handles this situation. And if you look closely on the screen, you'll actually see that it starts visualizing it as a human. So, spoiler alert, it decides to slow all the way down to 0 in the middle of a road where the speed limit is 40 miles per hour. Now, thankfully, nobody was behind us, and I always wondered to myself, would FSD behave the same way if someone were behind us? You can never know for sure, but this was certainly not ideal. To stop in the middle of the road, you can see we made it down to 2 miles per hour, and then it stayed there for a few seconds, and just not good. And to go back one more time, you can see there's the roadkill, and there's FSD visualizing a human. And listen, I'm always the one that says FSD is not making driving decisions based on what you see in the UI, but in this case, I'm not sure why it would slow down all the way like this if it didn't actually think that was a human. A quick little aside, I just learned that we now have a Rivian Adventure Network location near my house, which is a small town. There are definitely not a lot of EVs here. I think I've only seen one Rivian in person, but I was very pleased to see this location. There is a pull-through stall as well. And I plan to come here to charge every now and then, even though I can just charge at home, just to support the network because I would like to see it still here a few years down the road. This one left me very puzzled. You'll see it's a pretty standard intersection. We're coming up and we're going right here. It's a red light, but you can absolutely turn right on red. It was indeed a red light, so the car should have stopped and make sure nobody was coming. The thing is, nobody was coming and it stopped, and then it just stayed stopped. I ended up sitting here for over 3 minutes. You just saw me throw up my hands there because I'm like, why isn't it going? And it just sits here and sits here. And then the light turns green and it sat there. So I had no idea what was going on. And yes, I know on the screen it says FSD is degraded due to weather, but it said that really for the entirety of my drives. Anytime it rains at all, I usually get that warning. And right here on my watch, I go to set a timer because I'm curious how long FSD is just going to sit here when basically the entire time it could have gone. So I'll fast forward a little bit and just show you how this ends. I end up tapping the accelerator once and it budges forward but does not go. And so I ended up doing it a third time and just made it go because I was like, all right, I don't know what's going on, but let's move on. Now, this situation of FSD, no version has ever gotten right. I am in the rightmost lane and you can't read it, but there's a sign right here that says you cannot turn right on red except for the rightmost lane, which is the lane we are in, which means the car can absolutely make a right turn through the red light. But it does not, it just sits here and waits for green. And once it turns green, then it decides to go. Then I decided to head downtown where there is all kinds of construction going on, and it wanted to take a left turn there, but it did reroute on the fly. It kept going straight, handled it pretty well, and then made the left turn as soon as it could. Now, if any of you are new here, I'm not at all trying to bash this version of FSD. I'm just trying to highlight what it is still not doing well, because at this point, I think that's the most valuable thing to focus on. Most of us know what it does do well. Now, it's situations like this that I enjoyed the most, when you can almost feel the car thinking. So it wanted to go straight to this tower, but as you can see, it was closed. So it turned left and then sat here for a second, and I thought it was actually going to park right here, which honestly would have been fine. But instead, it decided not to. It kept going, and then it pulled into a regular parking spot. So I think it was thinking its way through the situation and handled it just fine. For this next part, I really think it has to do with navigation and mapping problems. Of course, there's a lot of construction, so it could not take the regular route that it wanted to, but the solution was actually pretty easy, and I really thought it was going to figure it out, but it didn't. At this point, it's going the right direction. We're heading the way we need to go. But skipping ahead a bit, you'll see the navigation gets all goofy. So the destination we're trying to get to is basically right over here. So instead of FSD just making this left turn right here, which it was able to do, you'll see shortly, it decides to go straight, and then it was going to reroute going backwards where we just came from. And spoiler alert, I let it go that way. It did go all the way back over there, but then ended up coming back the exact same direction and ended up doing the same thing again. When all along, all the solution was making a right turn right here. I'll pause again, and you can see all the car has to do is make a right at this stop sign, and it would have met back up with where the navigation was having it go, without going all the way back over to the left. So in this situation, I was confused, because I'm like, the cameras can see you can absolutely turn right here. On the map, it's very clear. You can take this road and it'll connect where the navigation is going. But for whatever reason, it decides to make a left turn. And again, as I said, it went all the way back through the navigation you're seeing on the screen. And then this was after letting the car do its thing, taking that left turn. And you can see all it needs to do is go right, but instead it turns the left turn signal on. But I intervene right there, turn the right signal on manually, and then it takes the right turn and it's fine from there. So hopefully these data points are illuminating, because I think many of you watch Electrified because I try to educate and focus on the data. I obviously have my bias, but I try to call them as I see them. So here's some data for you. 73% of US adults have experienced some kind of online scam or attack, and a record $16.6 billion in losses was reported to the FBI in 2024 alone. And remember, many of these scams go unreported out of embarrassment. So yes, I'm a big advocate for Delete Me, the sponsor of this video, because it's an affordable, hands-off way to protect you and your family from these cyber-driven crimes. Delete Me does the legwork of removing your personal information from these data brokers online that are currently selling your information around the web, whether you know it or not. It's quite simple. Delete Me has cumulatively saved me thousands of hours from doing this brutally tedious work myself, and I get detailed reports every 3 months with an update. Their customer service is great, as you'll get your own rep anytime you have any questions. So if you want some peace of mind, your privacy back, and to support Electrified, you can head to joindeleteme.com/electrified to get 20% off using my code Electrified linked below, or by using the QR code on the screen. Which then leads us to a parking incident. If you've already seen this on X, you can skip ahead for the next 2 minutes. Now, I'll pause here to show you all of this area over here. This is a restricted area. These are not parking spaces. Now, I did select charger as the parking destination option, although there was no charger at this location. So I don't know why that was an option, but I just figured I would choose it to see what happens. So I'm not sure if the car was thinking this was like a supercharger stop or what, but it most certainly was not. And then from here, I'm just going to let you listen to the original audio.
More private, I don't want to name, but they put me on, not just to Joe Kent, but Patrick Witt in Georgia, Gibbs in Michigan, a lot of different people. And Joe Kent was one of them. And I had a phone call with Joe Kent. And I told him, I have my assistant on the phone too, who's Jewish, by the way.
Here we have the rear camera backing in. And again, just watch this potted plant on the left. clearly makes contact. The plant starts moving back, and the car seemed like it parked or just stopped there, even though it never shifted into park. Then I take control and pull forward once I realized what happened. And here's one more angle from the repeater camera on the right. Once again, you'll be able to see the plant most certainly moves. Contact was most certainly made by FSD. Then I take over and pull forward. And here is the result. So I went out this morning to check my car in the light, and you'll see there was indeed a scratch. I tried to wipe it off just to make sure it wasn't dirt or anything else, and it was not. It is actually a scratch. So not a huge deal. I'm not like super mad about it, but definitely something to be aware of. And to everyone that's going to say I should have intervened to stop this from happening, yes, thank you. I'm aware I could have, but I was just trying to do some honest testing to see the real state of version 14. And in this case, my curiosity got the best of me, wanting to see if it really would make contact, and it did. And here up ahead, we're going to have a random swerve to the right, which was pretty significant. It didn't go off the road or anything, but again, if you're not expecting it, you're just wondering what the heck's going on. It doesn't look that bad on video, but in the car it feels like, okay, I'm not very comfortable right now. And this is the frame when the wheel started to go right for the first time. You can see there's nothing there. There's certainly some glare from these lights and the water on the road, but absolutely nothing to be swerving for, and it just puts you on edge a little bit. This is a tricky intersection getting out of the Chick-fil-A parking lot. You need to go left across 4 lanes of traffic, and then there's traffic coming from across from McDonald's, and I ended up sitting here for a few minutes, and there were certainly a few times that the car definitely could have gone, and in the end I had to get on the accelerator to finally get us through. I was just in standard mode, and there was a car behind me. Thankfully they were not being aggressive, because I certainly could have just turned right and then made a U-turn up ahead, but I decided to sit and wait to see what it would do. And this is a tough situation because in my state, we're both coming out of private parking lots. I'm from Chick-fil-A and he's out of McDonald's. So it's really like first come, first serve. As far as I understand it, whoever gets the right of way first should go. But it's tricky because before I finally made a move and got on the accelerator, the car that was coming the other direction was also trying to turn left, meaning our paths were gonna have to cross. And then what finally happened was after about 4 to 5 minutes, you'll see soon, it started to go, but then it stopped again. And by this point, I was basically out in the lane. So I just got on the accelerator and said, I'm done with this. We're going to go now. I get on the accelerator now and just make it go through as it should have done. So again, there's my thumbs down, and there were a handful of times it certainly could have gone. I mean, Tesla's quick. I think it should take advantage of getting out there when the time is right. And in an optimal world, if for whatever reason it doesn't feel safe, then take that quick right, do a U-turn, and get back on the road. One thing I was very eager to test was lane selection, because there are a few places where no matter what, it always ends up in the wrong lane. One was coming off this exit from the highway. It needs to be in the far left lane to make this left turn. That's the only lane you can turn left from, but once again it stayed in the middle lane, which is only straight or right. But I decided to let it play out just to see how it handles it, and you can decide what you think. When the light turns green, it stays wide, and there are 2 lanes here, so it takes the wide lane. It slows down enough to let the lead car get ahead of us, and luckily the car that was behind that car now in front of us slowed down and just pulled in right behind us, no problem. But the reason there's only supposed to be 1 lane turning left is because most cars pull into this far lane because the left lane is a left turn only to get right back on the highway. And guys, I know there's a lot of negatives so far, but just know in between all of these clips there were also plenty of very good things, like the way it handled parking lots most of the time, pulling in front first, and handled it very well despite pretty significant rain. We have 2 superchargers in our town, and I went to both and it handled them perfectly. It backed in really about as good as you could do it, very smooth. So absolutely no complaints here. As you can see, parked better than the human driver right next to us. Past versions right here would always want to end up in this right lane that's right turn only, but we need to go straight. So this one did get over to the left, and then it started to go back over to the right, but it corrected itself and stayed to the left. So certainly better than it was. This one right here is most likely a mapping problem. We're going to this country fair on the left, and you'll see the car absolutely could have just got into this left turn lane and entered the country fair parking lot right here on this side. But instead, it stays in this straight lane, goes to the light, waits for the light, makes a left turn and goes around, and then I'll show you what it does. So it does keep going forward and then goes around this car. Luckily, there's still a driveway here, so it can make it in. So it got us to the destination, but I just keep thinking to myself, in a robotaxi world, ideally you would want the car to be smarter than the navigation. In this instance, we've seen plenty of times the car go off the blue navigation route. And in this case, it would have been great to see the car recognize, hey, here's Country Fair, here's a left into the parking lot. Instead of going around and wasting all that time, I can just get in the left turn lane and get in there now. And then just some quirky things. So right here, the car needs to take a right, but for whatever reason, it turns the left turn signal on and starts creeping out to the left as if it's going to go around this car, but then it hesitated like it didn't want to go over the yellow lines. Then it turns the right turn signal on and waits and eventually sneaks in and makes the right hand turn. So once it had the right direction, it handled the situation quite well. It got over in a very short amount of time and did get fortunate somewhat, but it pulled it off. I'm sure you've heard a lot about how version 14 handles pedestrians, and my experience was mostly the same. You'll see here, it's tough to see this person, but there's someone coming up in the black with an umbrella and walking right there. And so the car like slams on the brakes, expecting her to go across the road, but she did not have any right of way. And then it happens again. There's going to be this guy with the beige hoodie, and the car just stops in the middle of the road when he was clearly going to wait, but then the car stopped, so he ended up going. So the intent understanding right there was not very good. And just to go back one more time, like you'll see this guy, he was clearly going to wait. He stopped right there, but then the car stopped, so he decided to go. And then I ended up recreating the parking lot situation where it contacted that plant. Everything was exactly the same. I had it choosing to park at a charger, even though there wasn't one here. This time there were cars in the parking lot, and it handled it perfectly. It just pulled into this open spot right out front, just like it really should have done the first time. And then driving home, I put it in Mad Max mode because I had a meeting I needed to get back for. But right here, it got into the left lane behind the bus and the other car when it clearly should have just stayed in that right lane, because you can go straight or right in that right lane. But instead it gets behind other cars, which is the last thing that it should do in Mad Max mode. And once we get going, it decides to stay in the left lane when it could easily get around this bus and the other car. But as you'll see here, a car is going to pass us on the right, like I was expecting our car to be doing, and you will see a very near miss accident. I actually throw my hands up because I thought it was going to happen. Not with me, but with a car that's going to pass us on the right. And right there, I was like, oh no, in my head. I really thought that was going to be a head on collision because I saw it from a mile away. That car turning left had no idea this white car was coming, but luckily the white car was paying attention. And again, guys, 99% of the time on FSD 14, it was indeed very, very good. No problems at all with heavy rain and some cameras being blurred from water. The point-to-point experience really does have to be experienced to understand it. It takes FSD to a whole new level. And while I did expose some issues with the parking lot behavior, nearly every other time it was very good. It parked great, and I do think reasoning will improve this and take us to much closer to being robotaxi ready. So all this to say, my main concern is still wondering how Tesla's going to solve the map dilemma, and that's definitely a problem in a town like mine where we don't have thousands of Teslas gathering data. And it's not one or two intersections either, but multiple situations where the wrong lane is almost always selected. Or as you saw, throw a bit of road work into the mix and then it gets stuck in these infinite loops when the solution really is pretty straightforward. And who knows, maybe adding reasoning to the model improves all of this, and I'll certainly hope for that, but the question becomes, will Tesla be willing to go unsupervised when it's still disobeying traffic laws, even if it's not dangerous? So don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying I'm concerned Tesla's not going to figure this out, I'm just saying from my perspective right now, they do still have real work to do. And maybe by version 14.2 or 3 or 4, I'm singing a completely different tune. That's a very real possibility. And as As for if you should download it, I would just say if you have holiday travel or plan to have the wife or family in the car and you want a smooth ride, definitely stick with version 13 for now. As everyone has said, there's enough braking and jerkiness to where I think version 13 would be your best bet. But obviously, if you like testing the bleeding edge and you're willing to sacrifice some comfort, then getting to see the car think through parking lot situations and experiencing the new capabilities is really cool. And lastly, we see this all the time. A new model comes out and then people can't help but see where the model has regressed, and then hopes are dashed because the hopes were out of control thanks to all of the hype leading up to it. So I do not want to extrapolate my experience right now to what we'll be seeing in a few weeks. I really just wanted to paint a clear picture of where things are at the moment for those that have not experienced it or those in geographies where the performance is more reliable. But despite the shortcomings and my questions or concerns at this stage, just like Tesla refined version 13, I'm very confident Tesla will deliver with everything it still has in the pipeline with version 14. Tesla stock closed the day at $440.10, down 4.64%, while the NDX was down 1.47%. The volume was 18% below the average. Don't forget, check out Delete Me, linked below for those interested, and as always, thank you guys so much for considering supporting the channel. Hope you have a wonderful day. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X, linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.